Hello, thank you for joining me. This is Shane with Prairie Fire Wilderness Skills, and I'm going to be talking today about hand drill mastery, what that means to me, and how to improve yourself when you feel like you're already pretty good. So stick with me, let's get started. So let's talk about the word mastery. To be a master at something, you have to know it inside and out, all the variables, ways to make whatever that is work or function in the way it's supposed to do. It means you know everything about that subject, and you're pretty much the best there is at doing it. Now, I don't think that's something that can be said with a skill like the hand drill. This is one of the oldest skills that mankind has. Maybe throughout time there have been people that would be considered masters at it. I know a couple of people that I would give that title to. That said, I don't know that mastery is really something that can be had for an art like this. And let me explain why. So I think that to master the hand drill specifically would mean you know all your materials that can work, you know when and how to gather all of them, you know all the variations in technique, stance, and can do it in pretty much all conditions, anywhere you go, off the land, snap your fingers. I think that's impractical. What you can do, however, is master your specific bioregion or specific materials that you use a lot. This set here is Seep Willow on Sotol. These are two materials that I've used a lot. I've gotten to the point with them that I can find pretty much any Seep Willow stalk and any piece of Sotol, and so long as they're dry and dead, I can make them spin out a coal for me. That's a difficult thing to do. I've put in a whole lot of time to make that happen. I may have mastered Seep Willow on Sotol. That doesn't mean I've mastered the hand drill entirely. This set is beargrass on beargrass. I made this set last week while I was out here living on the land. I made these ones as well. The difference between mastery of this set and the other set that I was showing is this one is new, it's different materials, and it's very experimental for me right now. I'm comfortable with it. I've not mastered it. And I don't think I will have it mastered for a long time because it's a new material and I need a lot of time experimenting and working with it before I feel fully comfortable with it. Next thing I want to talk about is floating. Floating is a very advanced hand drill skill. It's not something you're going to probably pick up very well when you're new to the craft. But I think to get to that point of mastery, that you should be able to float out a hand drill coal with minimal effort in most conditions, with most materials. At least with most good materials. So I'm going to go ahead and show the hand motion for floating. I'm not going to float out a coal right now, or really even be using a lot of pressure. But I want to show the motion for anybody that may not be familiar with the term. So with floating, you're moving one hand up and one hand down in a circular motion. I'm using the full length of my hand from the heel all the way up to my fingertips to make the most rotationally efficient stroke I can. When I'm actually floating, it's kind of like this. It doesn't really look like my hands are doing all that much. They mostly look like they're staying flat. They're not though. I just don't exaggerate my hands like this while I'm actively working it as much. Along with floating comes an upward float. So an upward float is simply what it sounds like. You're floating your hands up the spindle so that you can reset them without having to stop. So say you work your hands all the way down the spindle, you can work your hands right back up to the top with that same floating motion. If you put a lot of practice into it, you can float out coals without having to make any passes down the spindle. And if you put in a whole lot of work and get really good at dialing in your pressure with floating, then you can float out coals only with upward passes. So what that would look like is I'm moving my hands up the spindle, I get to the top, I slide them down, wash, rinse, and repeat. I've done that around a dozen times. It's not something I'm actively working on right now, but it is a really fun challenge every now and then when you have a good set. So I think that floating up and down is a really handy way to improve your overall ability with your hand drill and get closer to mastery. The next thing I'm going to talk about is spindle length. So your average hand driller is going to be using something about like this, around 2 feet long, nice and thin, pretty decently straight, and it'll work pretty nicely because you can just make a coal with a couple of passes of your hands up and down the spindle, no muss, no fuss. That's not always practical in every place. So learning how to use a short spindle is, in my mind, a very important thing for anybody that wants to get really, really good at the skill. To use a short spindle, you have to be good at floating because it's not very efficient to be traveling up and down the spindle nearly as much. If my hands are all the way down, I can work them back up, and then to go down, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 before I'm down at the bottom. Whereas with a big spindle, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 before I'm down at that same point, which is a couple inches above my fireboard. So 8 versus 22 hand strokes is a huge difference. This spindle is almost 3 times less efficient lengthwise as the long one. The way to get around that again is floating. So working your hands in one position on the spindle. If you do need to go back down, then floating them back up will keep you within that same efficiency. So now let's talk about stances. A lot of people, when they're making a fire with a hand drill, are going to be in what I call the standard kneeling stance. So that's when you've got 1 foot on the fireboard and you're working your spindle out in front of you like this. This is the most effective and efficient way for most people to make fire with a hand drill. This is most people's comfort zone. For mastery, you need to be fully capable and fully in control of all your stances. So that means you have to be good at kneeling, you have to be good at sitting, and if there are other stance variations that you should probably be good at those too. So I have one that I really like that I call the assisted kneeling stance. That's where I'm using another stick to pin down my fireboard so that I can be working with my legs down like this. My fireboard still won't move. That's my favorite stance. Sitting is my weakest stance because, as you can see, I'm a pretty thin person. I don't have a ton of upper body muscle. So the sitting stance, where all the strength has to come through your arms at a 90-degree angle, or close to it, is pretty inefficient for me if I don't do it a lot. I've been focusing on the sitting stance a lot recently to get around that problem. So work your stances. Know how to do it, when to use each stance, and get comfortable with all of them. So the last thing that I'm gonna mention for today is what I call getting a grip. What that means is you're going to find a way to increase your grip on your hand drill spindle so that you're not going with dry hands that are just going to be slipping and sliding on your spindle, thus making you have to work harder. So I'm going to gather some sap off this juniper tree to help increase my grip on my hand drill. This yellow hardened resin in here is what I'm going for. Can't really see it all that well at this angle. There's some more down here that we'll use. And I want to have a good handful. This is only a little bit, so I'm going to keep on gathering off camera. Here's a better example of what I'm looking for. All of this hardened resin that's dripping out of this juniper, nice and solid. This is what I'm wanting to improve my grip on my spindle. So with my juniper sap here, I'm going to take the end of my spindle and crush it in my hand so that I can make a powder. And if there's anything like this where it's kind of just gumming and sticking together, I'm going to get rid of that. I just want this to be a crushed up fine powder that I can use on my hands and on the spindle to increase my grip. So this is getting pretty decent. I'm going to work the spindle, a little bit of pressure to warm everything up so that I can get this upper portion of my spindle all sticky. Not necessarily sticky, but tacky. You don't want it to be too overly sticky because then it can start to really grab your hands, but you want it to be tacky enough that your hands aren't slipping on the spindle. So this is pretty good. I'm going to take the rest of this and scrub my hands hard and fast to warm it up and tack up my hands. So now my hands look kind of pale. That's even paler than normal for me. That's because my hands are now covered in that pitch. So I'm going to use everything that I've talked about so far to spin out a coal on my small beargrass set. Apologies for any background noise. I'm on some national forest land, and there's some people out here with dirt bikes. I'll try to limit that noise as much as I can. Anyway, so I'm going to be in my sitting stance because this is my weak stance. I'm going to warm up my set and get it burned in using a good floating technique. I will show some upward floating on this short spindle too, but for now, I'm just going to go ahead and float regularly for my burn in. I'm using pretty significant pressure because this set is being stubborn, but now it's starting to burn. So that's good for my burn in. Go ahead and carve in my notch. Because it's a little bit closer to this bottom edge, I'll carve it on that side. I prefer to have my notch face me, but that's okay. Sometimes on these smaller fireboards, it's harder to keep things all centered, so you have to be a little bit flexible with your intentions. So my notch is cut in. So now I'll go ahead and spin out a coal. I'm going to be using my knife as my coal catch, and I'm not going to be bringing this coal to flame. This is just practice for this video. So getting everything all settled. My hands are still good and grippy from the juniper, so I don't need any more sap. So I'm going to float slow with moderate pressure to warm everything up. I can feel it's already starting to cut and starting to burn. So I'm not going to worry about going too fast yet. Right now I'm just building up heat and building up punk. And I think I'm going to change the camera angle so you can see the coal being generated. Well, I guess I stopped recording, but here's the coal from that. Only took a few seconds. So I'll go ahead and spin out another one for you. All right. So here's the first coal. Might be able to see a little bit with it, might not. I'm going to go ahead and knock out another one next to that same spot from the first one. Because apparently I'm not good at making videos and my phone stopped recording without me knowing. So I'm going to go ahead and warm it back up and get another burn in. That'll do. So I'll go ahead and carve in the notch. Still on that same forward facing side. And I have to be real careful or I'm going to break my fireboard, because these narrow ones can be fragile. And I just felt a little crack in it a second ago. So that'll do. Move the camera. Keep your eye right here, and you'll see me spin out this little baby coal. So again, I'm just going to warm up slowly. I don't need to be working too hard. Right now I'm just trying to generate heat and build up my punk. I've got a full notch already, so I'm going to pick up my speed, my pressure just a bit. And I blew out the front of my fireboard, but I did get the tiniest little coal here. Anyway, ignore the noise of that dirt bike in the background if you can. I don't like it very much either. So I'm just burning in a third hole here. I haven't had to add any more juniper pitch this whole time. Still got plenty of grip. Now, this is really narrow. The notch is going to be on this side again, but I also might burn out the front like I did on the last one if I don't keep things absolutely perfect. So I'm going to be really careful. All right, so I've got it notched. So let's give this one last go here. Oh, I just felt my fireboard break in half a little. Gonna have to be real careful, but I think I can still make this work. All right, let's see what happens. So I'm warming everything up, keeping everything as straight as I can. Got a full notch. And it didn't quite ignite. I've got a little bit of spot left in there, so I'm just gonna go for it. All right, that one didn't go. And sometimes this is just how it works. So this fireboard is all used up now. I do have this one that I can use, and I probably will for sake of this video. I changed my mind. We're gonna use the Sotal on Seep Willow, or Seep Willow on Sotal set, so that I can show more upward floating, because I just realized I didn't do that with the last couple coals. So I'm gonna go ahead and get set up for that. All right, so we got the second hole notched. I'm gonna go ahead and knock out a coal on it. We're gonna integrate a little bit of upward floating. Now, upward floating is a whole lot harder than regular floating or hand passes. So I am going to be in the kneeling stance so that I can increase my downward pressure. And that's just part of this, is knowing what stance to use when. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Put y'all down here so you can see a little better. So I'm gonna start down at the bottom here, and I'm gonna work my way up and back down. Just warming everything up. Regular hand pass down and resetting because my arms are tired. Needed to increase my grip and I'm out of juniper pitch. So I'm just making a regular pass down with a little bit of spit for grip, and I have my coal. And there she is. All right, I'm gonna use a third set now because I do want to show that up to down floating a little bit better. So this is mullein on bear grass, and this will be the last one we do for this video today. Using a little bit of spit for grip, so just a little bit of spit in my hands and work it up and down the spindle. I'm going to start with my float up top. Right now I'm just burning in, not really working too hard or making a ton of effort. I'm just going to go ahead and knock this burn in nicely. So that'll be good. There we have it. So I'm going to go ahead and notch it real quick, and then we'll cut back to it once it's done. All right, so I've got that hole notched right here. So I'm going to go ahead and go for the last coal of this video. Again, I'm going to just be using spit for my grip because we have spit naturally. So I'm going to just work it on the spindle. We don't want it to be too much or it'll be really slippery. So I'm going to warm up with floating on top. Once I see some smoke, I'll make a pass down, and there's some smoke, keeping it nice and gentle and controlled. And then I'm going to work my hands back up and back down and back up. A little more grip needed. All right, there we go. For real this time, there's our coal. So that was mullein and bear grass, and a really pretty cherried up coal for your viewing pleasure. I know I said the last one was going to be the last one, but now it'll be this time for the last one, because I'm just a fiend for this kind of stuff. So again, this one's mullein on bear grass. I'm going to float till I have a little smoke. There's a little smoke, so I'm going to go down and back up and back down and back up and back down and back up and down and down. I needed a good thumbnail, so this will be for that. Alright, so that's going to be it for today's video. We've covered a lot of information today, going from short spindles to floating up and down the spindle to working your weaker stance and getting a grip on your spindle. If you have any further questions, please let me know down in the comments. If you add these into your fire making routine, you will get better with time. So again, if you have questions, please let me know. And until the next time, have a great day.